I'm 73 years old, and if you retired and stopped earning an income altogether, you made a financial mistake, and you probably don't even know it yet. This video is about the cost of that mistake. I retired at 68 with more money saved than most people I knew. And within 18 months, I had made the worst financial decision of my life. Not by spending recklessly, not by trusting the wrong person. I made it by doing exactly what I had planned to do for 40 years. That's what nobody tells you. The mistake isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, dressed as wisdom. By the end of this, I'm going to tell you about a single sheet of paper, one I almost threw away, a conversation I didn't understand for 19 years, and a message I wrote to 7 people that changed the shape of the rest of my life. Some of what I share here you may disagree with. I'm counting on that. I spent 39 years as a civil and structural engineer, bridges, municipal drainage systems, infrastructure projects in 4 different states. I was not brilliant. I was disciplined. I showed up early. I read everything. I made decisions that cost real money when they were wrong, and I learned to not be wrong twice about the same thing. I raised 2 children, paid off a house, contributed to my 401k every year without exception, bought only what I could afford, and retired on a Tuesday in October with a handshake and a small ceremony that felt larger in my imagination than it did in the room. I had done everything right. I believed that, and for the first few weeks, the belief held. Then came the first Monday. I remember it because it was raining. I woke at my usual time, 5:45, and I lay there in the dark realizing there was nowhere I needed to be. My wife was still asleep. The house was quiet in a way that felt different from weekend quiet. Weekend quiet has edges. This quiet had none. This was permanent quiet. I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and looked out the window at the wet street for a long time. I wasn't sad. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't sad. I just felt something I didn't have a word for yet. Like standing in a room where all the furniture has been removed. The walls are still there. The floor is still there. But the room doesn't know what it is anymore. I had planned my retirement the way I planned every project. I had a number, a target savings figure I had spent decades building toward. I reached it, and I retired. The plan was to stop accumulating and start drawing down. Carefully, of course, with a modest withdrawal rate, with Social Security factored in, with a budget that left room for travel and the occasional indulgence. I had modeled it. I was an engineer. Modeling things was what I did. What I had not modeled was what happens when a man who has spent 40 years solving problems stops being asked to solve problems. For 3 months, I kept myself busy. Projects around the house, a trip with my wife to Portugal, which was beautiful and which I was not fully present for, though I didn't admit that until much later. I read books I had been meaning to read. I took a woodworking class. I was doing the things retirement is supposed to look like. And underneath all of it, very quietly, something was going wrong. I had planned for money. I had not planned for usefulness. It was a Wednesday night in February, about 7 months in, when I sat down with a legal pad and did the actual numbers, not the projected numbers. The real ones, what we had actually spent, what the market had actually done that quarter, what the next 10 years looked like if the same conditions continued. I wasn't panicking. I want to be specific about that. It wasn't a crisis. It was more like a crack in the wall, small, hairline, the kind that doesn't mean the house is falling, but does mean you should pay attention. I sat there for a long time after I finished, the legal pad in front of me, the kitchen quiet. And for the first time, I let myself ask the question I had been avoiding: what if the number isn't enough? Not because I had been irresponsible, because living is longer and more expensive than the models suggest, and because I had built a plan entirely around subtraction when I should have built it around something else entirely. That's when I remembered what a man named Gerald had said to me at a conference in 2009. Gerald was older than me, maybe 60 at the time. An independent consultant who had left a large firm years before. We had dinner together with a group, and at some point he said something I filed away without understanding. He said, "The biggest shift I ever made was realizing they were never paying me for my time. They were paying me for what I knew, and what I know doesn't expire." At 49, I had found that interesting. I hadn't found it necessary. At 68, sitting at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a crack in the wall, I finally understood what he meant. My knowledge doesn't expire. 39 years of solving structural problems, navigating municipal contracts, managing project timelines under pressure, anticipating failure points before they occur, none of that had gone anywhere. I had just decided to stop using it. I had treated retirement as the point where I became a person who no longer contributed anything. And I had done that voluntarily without anyone asking me to. Retirement didn't make me poor. It made me economically silent. That realization sat with me for several days because it came with a resistance I needed to examine. I did not want to go back to work. I want to be honest about that. I had paid my dues. I had earned the right to be done. The idea of re-entering the workforce in any formal way felt like failure. Or worse, desperation. I imagined myself competing with younger engineers for jobs I had held at 35. That image was unbearable. But Gerald hadn't been talking about jobs. I started thinking differently. I thought about the people I had worked with over the years, project managers at municipal agencies who were still in the field, junior engineers who had become senior engineers, now running departments, now facing the same problems I had faced and solved 20 years ago. I thought about what it would have meant to me at 38 to have 30 minutes a month with someone who had already made the mistakes I was about to make. I took out a sheet of paper and wrote down 7 names, former colleagues, former clients. One man I had disagreed with sharply in 1998 and had respected ever since. Then I wrote each of them a short message, not a resume, not a proposal. Something closer to this. I have a few hours a month I can offer for conversation. If you're working through problems I've seen before, I'd find it useful to stay engaged. If you'd find it valuable, let's talk. I was not asking for a job. I was offering my attention on a limited, defined basis. I was framing it as something that would benefit me too, which was true. I sent those 7 messages over the course of a week. Then I closed the laptop and waited. 6 responded. 5 said yes without negotiation. One asked what I had in mind and said yes within 2 days. I had expected silence. I received the opposite. Within 60 days, I was having monthly conversations with 4 people, each lasting about an hour, each focused on a specific challenge they were navigating. I was not on anyone's payroll. I was not managing a project. I was not attending meetings or filing anything. I was applying experience that had taken decades to build to problems that genuinely needed it, and each of those conversations came with a modest payment that I had named myself without apology. The money was not transformative. I want to be clear about that. I am not going to tell you it changed my financial situation overnight, because that would be untrue, and you would sense it. What it did was different. It created a floor, a small, steady, parallel income that existed alongside my savings rather than instead of it. My savings were no longer being drawn down at the same rate. The crack in the wall stopped spreading. But here is what surprised me. The money was almost secondary to something else. There is a difference between money you have saved and money you have just created. Saved money is finite. You are always aware, somewhere at the edge of your thoughts, that it is diminishing. New money is different. New money is evidence that you still have something to offer. That knowledge changes how you move through a week. I kept this arrangement for 4 years. Some clients changed. Some conversations led to small project work that I chose carefully. By the time I was 72, my financial situation looked almost nothing like what my model had predicted at 68. Not because the market had been kind, because I had refused eventually to accept the premise that retirement meant becoming economically passive. I took a trip to Portugal again at 73 with my wife, the same city, some of the same streets. I was fully present this time. I noticed things I had missed before. I don't think that was a coincidence. What I know now, and what I wish someone had said to me before that first Monday, is this: the system you built, the savings, the plan, the number, that system is the floor. It is not the ceiling. It is not the whole structure. It is the thing that keeps you from falling, not the thing that determines how high you can live. Your experience is not a chapter that closes when you stop working. It is an asset, one that most people in your former industry would pay to access, if you gave them a clear and simple way to do so. Most people never offer it. They assume no one would want it. They confuse offering it with desperation, or they simply never thought to try. I was 68 years old. I had spent nearly 4 decades solving problems that cost real money when they went wrong. I had done that quietly, without fanfare, in service of work that mostly no one outside the field ever noticed. And in the end, what saved the last chapter of my financial life was not a clever investment. It was not a lucky break. It was a short message I almost didn't send to people who had been waiting for someone like me to ask. The sheet of paper I almost threw away. The message I almost didn't write. The name of a man from a dinner in 2009 that I almost forgot. Almost. I wonder sometimes how many people in this situation carry experience worth exactly this kind of use and never offer it. I also wonder whether the number matters more than how it's made, or whether those two things are more different than we think. I don't have a clean answer to either of those, but I think you might.